Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Bulletproof Dental Practice podcast. I'm here today with Peter, and also, I'm going to use this, by the way, our esteemed guest, because Pete always makes fun of me when I say esteemed, but this guy is easily a very esteemed guest, Dr. Simon Chard, coming all the way from across the pond in London. How you doing today?
Yeah, good. Very well.
Awesome. Your practice is in London, correct? I didn't misspeak, or it's not in London. I'm sorry.
It's kind of on the outskirts, near Heathrow.
Okay, got it. So for the average American, if you're from England, you're from London, just so you know.
I'm definitely from London. Then.
There's only one city that we know, right?
Right.
Everyone in England is from London.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, good to have you here. Appreciate you making the time to talk to us. I've been watching and admiring what you do, not only for dentistry, but on a personal level for many years now. And I want to thank you for your open transparency and your desire to improve the profession. It's really uplifting. And I'm always watching your Instagram stories and feeling really good about what you post. And so I want to thank you for that, for being like a beacon of light in our profession.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Well, same to you guys. I'm a long-term fan of your podcast, and I think it's awesome what you guys are doing.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Simon, are most of your followers, I see that you've got a pretty significant stack of followers on Instagram. Would you say it's more patients or from an influencer standpoint, or more a lot of dentists? Because you've got about 25,000 Instagram followers just alone.
Yeah.
What would you say the breakdown is?
I've always tried to pitch my content at both, because there's benefits for me in gathering new patients through Instagram, which I do a lot. Almost all of my new patients come from across the country and sometimes across the world through Instagram. And then also from a key opinion leader and a business point of view, interacting with other dentists is very beneficial. And it also, for me, it allows me to give a lot back to my profession, because I get loads of young dentists DMing me, asking questions about career pathways and issues that they're having. And I really enjoy that opportunity.
I mean, that's the thesis of Bulletproof too, is you really kind of why Craig and I started it, was just paying it forward, giving it back. We all stood on the shoulders of giants. Let me ask you, how long have you been out of school? When did you graduate?
2012.
2012. Okay. So you've been
so 8 years.
8 years. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's incredible.
You've made a lot of strides in 8 years. Boy.
I know. I meet all these young dentists like yourself, and I'm like, yeah, damn.
Craig, what have you been doing your whole career, Craig?
Yeah.
You've been literally just
IPR.
Just nothing. Just been floating through life, Craig. It's all you've been doing.
Well, listen, if we're going to upwardly compare ourselves, we have to downwardly compare as well. So you got to, I mean, it's incredible what you've accomplished. And I just want to go over that, because there might be some U.S. listeners here that don't know who you are. Maybe they've been living under a rock, but you're the co-owner of Rothley Lodge Dental, which is a multi-generational dental practice. So you and I share a history with that, being that our grandfathers and our fathers were both dentists. And from what I understand, you still work with your dad, as do I, which is pretty cool.
And wife.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then
sorry, Craig, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, I got to keep going. I'll make it quick.
Intro.
It's not my official intro. I just want people to know. I don't want them to have to learn through Googling. So also, and the reason why I gave you the esteemed title, though Pete says I dole that out quite easily. You're also the scientific director for the British Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry, which is super cool, and a co-owner of Parla toothpaste tabs, and going to fight plastic one tube at a time with a tablet form of toothpaste. That's awesome. So we'll unpack all that later, but now Pete has a question right for you. Go for it.
No, I just wanted to get a size, since you work with your wife, multi-generational, I'm going to get a size and scope of your practice. Are you more boutique? Or are you more like Craig and more hospital, kind of like all things under one roof? I want to get some scope.
So my parents owned the practice for 35 years before we took over. Mm-hmm. So they pretty much bought it 6 months before I was born, and grew it from a single-handed practice to a 5-surgery practice. And then my wife and I took over in 2017, and we at that point grew it to a all things under one roof type model, where my parents had a very good sort of family-based dentistry, but they would refer out anything more complex. And so we brought in an endodontist and a periodontist, an orthodontist. I do cosmetic dentistry and implant dentistry, brought in all the digital stuff. So we're 7 surgeries now, with a sort of pretty much everything under one roof.
When you
So
say
it's a little bit
surgeries, that means
operatories.
operatories.
Yeah, I'll do the British.
Operatories, yeah.
I'm going to do the British to English translation if you don't mind, because I
Hey.
enjoyed that. I enjoyed that. I want to do that. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
British to
Operatories.
American. British to American. We speak American. We don't speak English. They speak English. Yeah. So you're a little bit more like us, with like me, with all the specialty floating through. You know, that's kind of the same tangent I went off on. I came to the practice and I was frustrated that the lab was outside the office, and then I had to send people to different places. And I had that dream to have what we created in school and university, with everybody under one roof, and that academic approach to dentistry. So that was the genesis for me as well.
Yeah, I think the next stage for me is the lab. That's the one component that I'm missing. I have 3 CEREC scanners, including the Prime Scan, and I do a lot of in-house milling and chairside fabrication and that sort of thing. But to have that in-house lab would be that's my next port of call.
Yeah, Brazil is almost empty now, by the way. It's almost
all the techs in America.
right. Just go to like LA or New York and get one. No, it's a joke.
That's the thing, though, and that must be hard. I've worked in a practice with an in-house lab before, and we really struggled to keep the technicians would get better and better and better, and then you'd get that sweet spot where it was just amazing, and they'd come in and they would just everything would drop in perfectly, and then they would want more money and they would go somewhere else and they'd set up their own shop, and it was a bit of a conveyor belt in that way. So I'd love to hear how you've managed to hang on to good techs, if you found that easy or not.
we had this one guy who was literally amazing. So Freddie's been with me for like 10 or 12 years, 12 years, just gifted. Like, I mean, the most beautiful ceramics ever. I mean, much like what we see on Instagram, like when you see like, you know, one of Alpha's cases or something like that, he has that touch, but he's a traditional lab tech. He never embraced the digital workflow. So I brought in another guy named Enrique, and Enrique studied under Freddie, but translated everything Freddie did and turned it into a digital workflow. And he got better and better and better. And I pushed and pushed and pushed. And now he's like on Spanish TV shows, like making teeth for, I mean, I'm proud of what he's done, but, you know, but he's on his own now. So, yeah, I think that's just a natural thing. There's just an economic impact of being a technician for 2 or 3 providers and what they can make versus being a technician for 50 providers and what they could make. And there are certain providers out there. There are certain dentists that produce like 50 themselves, and that's a different story. They can keep people, but it reminds me of that Richard Branson quote. Is this teach people so well that they could leave you, but treat them, or teach people everything so that, you know, that they could leave you, but treat them so well that they don't want to. I know I butchered that, but you get the point.
You get the point. Yeah, for sure.
So let's go on into the British Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry. Tell me a little bit about that. What would be the equivalent organization in the U.S. for that?
So we're an affiliate of the AACD.
Got it. Perfect.
About it would have been 15 years ago now. A lot of the UK dentists were flying over to get training from AACD dentists, Larry Rosenthal, those sort of guys. And they basically came back to the UK and decided to make their own academy. People like Chris Orr and Elaine Halley and sort of the top guys in the UK. And so basically when I was an undergraduate, I was on Dental Town a lot. So the US forum, pre-Facebook groups for dentistry. And I was always on there watching mainly American guys, but there was a few Brits on there, which was Tiff Qureshi and Jason Smithson, both of whom, Jason's now a spear trainer, and Tiff is, at that point he was using the Inman aligner, which I don't know if that's come across to the States much. It's quite, I don't use it personally. It's quite a bulky appliance, but he was in the UK anyway, one of the big proponents of GDPs doing orthodontics before Invisalign sort of really took a hold of that market. And anyway, Tiff was the president-elect of BACD, and I reached out to him through the Dental Town direct message, which seems very archaic now, and asked him to come down to my university and do a lecture. And he actually happened to have gone to my university as well. So he came down gave a lecture, and then he asked me to be a part of the BACD. So I was a student member in my undergraduate years, and then just gradually came up through the ranks. And you ask how I've achieved so much so quickly within my career, and being a part of that academy has opened so many doors for me, given me job opportunities and taught me so much. So a lot of it I attribute to the BACD, which is why I'm really glad to be on the board of it now.
Very cool. And how long have you been affiliated on the board? I mean, how long have you been on the board of the BACD?
3 years now.
Oh, wow. Good for you. Good for you. That's awesome. So is it very digitally focused, the BACD, or is it lagging from other areas of the world?
I mean, I guess because a lot of the guys on the board are quite digitally focused, it's not. And I think obviously now that I'm in control of the education, I'm naturally going to lean it more towards my areas of interest, hence why I reached out to you guys to get you to come over to the UK.
Yeah, we'd love to.
Very selfishly. But I mean, digital is, even the term digital dentistry now is kind of a silly one, because I know everything is digital. I mean, it's just restorative cosmetic dentistry using the latest techniques. But I mean, you still kind of have to call it that to break it apart from other things. But that's my viewpoint on it anyway.
There's dentists that think they're practicing non-digital dentistry. They're taking impressions. They're doing everything the way they think that they've always done it. They send it to the lab. It gets digitized there, unbeknownst to them.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And
they think it's strictly analog. It is getting digitized. Yeah.
Their gold crown is made on the 3D printed model.
Exactly. So they have no idea their impressions being scanned. Yeah. So it's true. It's a good point. So talk to us about Parla. Let me see how you got involved with Parla. What's the deal with that, and how did you become co-founder, co-owner of that?
So the brand was founded by myself, Dr. Rona Iskander, and Dr. Adarsh Sankey. So we're all sort of relatively high-profile dentists in the UK. Myself and Rona especially, I'm a was a key opinion leader for Oral-B. And she was a key opinion leader for Philips and Sensodyne and various other companies. And we also shared this mutual appreciation for the environment and for the ocean and for the planet. And certainly for myself, my dream is to one day live by the ocean. That's where I most find peace on this earth, is when I'm either in the sea, on the sea, near the sea. So I guess we were striving for an opportunity to make an impact on dentistry, which I don't think is very good when it comes to our eco status. And that kind of led us to think, where can we make the biggest amount of impact? And obviously you can make a certain amount of impact within the profession, but going out to the general public, if we go into the toothpaste market, 1.5 billion toothpaste tubes go into either landfill or the ocean every year. I think it's 400,000 a year in the UK, and obviously in total comes up to quite a massive figure. And I guess I didn't really even think about that. I mean, I've been promoting Oral-B's toothpaste. They make good toothpaste, but I didn't even think about the fact their tubes were completely non-recyclable plastic. And everyone in the world was using them every day. So we sort of looked at the recyclable tube option, which is very difficult to actually do in reality. We looked at various other options, and there were various tablet brands out there, but most of them were fluoride free. And so that's kind of what led us to think, okay, we're dentists. We know these products need to contain fluoride to prevent against decay, which is still one of the biggest, most prevalent diseases in the world. So can we merge these two passions of protecting our patients' teeth and also being eco-friendly at the same time? So all the packaging is completely plastic free, completely recyclable. The jar is designed to be reused. It's a subscription-based model. So the customer just gets the tablets delivered to their door every 4 months. And it's been a bit of a wild journey for the last year, but I'm really, really proud of the product that we've designed.
Yeah, it also solves two big issues. Number one being toothpaste is nicest to use out of the tube the first 2 or 3 times you use it. And then someone in your family doesn't know how to use it properly, and it gets all grody.
Leaves the lid off.
Squeeze it properly. Yeah, or squeezes it from the top or the bottom or whatever. And then the other thing is the dose. because when the toothpaste commercials come out, they show you putting the whole line, you know, a quarter inch or, you know, 15, 20 millimeters of toothpaste. We know you shouldn't have that much. So people are overusing the amount of toothpaste. But just curious, and I don't want to get too tangential here. What about your feeling about using nanohydroxyapatite versus fluoride as far as anti-caries efficacy? What do you know about it? Do you know much? Because for me, I've always thought that nanohydroxyapatite it works as good, if not better than
it
fluoride.
Remineralizes. It doesn't change the chemical structure. You know that,
Yeah, but that's
yeah,
go ahead, Simon. He's a scientific director, so let's have him speak.
I'm a scientist.
No pressure.
Whatever.
No
pressure. Exactly.
There's I like hydroxyapatite as an ingredient, and I think certainly in the future it may be something that we look at ourselves. I haven't seen it as an alternative to fluoride, and I don't know much about it as a replacement. But as I say, what I do see is loads of new toothpaste brands, loads of Instagram brands promoting their eco-friendly positives and their cleanness as a brand, and fluoride naturally has quite bad PR. So that's why we looked at that as sort of a main thing to bring in. But I don't know enough about the science to have the argument on hydroxyapatite versus fluoride.
Yeah, what you can tell how confused the market is when Dr. Kylie Jenner, I don't know if you've heard of her. She's a very well-known dentist in
where does she
Beverly
qualify?
Hills. Well, I mean, she's not a doctor, but you know, she's
a doctor of money, that's for sure.
Right. Yeah. She's got a graduate PhD in printing money. So anyway, Dr. Kylie Jenner, a renowned scientific director of her own sort, is now promoting a very well-branded and well-marketed and well-sold toothpaste that has charcoal in it. And charcoal works really well because just like if you want to make your wood floors a little whiter, you can sand them down. You can do the same thing with your teeth, and the consumer is totally confused. And it's unfortunate that even the big brands, we won't mention names, but instead of standing up for what's right, have just succumbed to putting charcoal in their toothpaste as well.
So this has been going on forever, meaning look at your ingredients. Silica is glass, right?
You're eating glass. Eat glass.
It's the same thing. I mean, it's not like it's anything all of a sudden we made this pivot into something abrasive. It's always been there.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure the RDA, the abrasiveness index on the charcoal toothpaste is quite a lot higher than on a lot of good toothpaste. But I agree, there are certain big brand names which have a surprisingly high RDA.
Right. Well, that's how you get your whitening claim.
The Optic White by Crest has like a 200.
So white to get a whitening to be able to clear the FDA, from what I understand, and call your toothpaste a whitening toothpaste, it has to have a certain level of RDA. So I guess the best whitening you could possibly get would be like regular, like a belt sander, you know, like belt sanding white by our favorite brand.
Or just get like Brillo pads. Just
oh yeah, that's a great idea. Brillo toothpaste. It's a trusted
you
brand.
have to put them on your fingers though.
I have a good one, Tilex Soft Scrub. It's a trusted brand. People understand it. You know, people really, in the US, Soft Scrub is really a very well regarded brand. It takes your tiles and makes them white. Imagine what it do for your teeth. Just so you know, any patients that are listening to this, we are joking right now. That is a complete joke. Do not brush your teeth with those things. Yeah, it does. In this day and age, we have to actually say that. So what I love about your, sorry, please go ahead.
Sorry. So your point on Dr. Kylie Jenner's toothpaste brand, that's another one of the reasons why we spent a year trying to get the branding right on this, because we know that people want brands that look like Kylie Jenner's, because they want something that looks cool on their shelves and that they can share on their social media and that they can be sort of a bit prophetic about. And so that's why we took a lot of time over the branding to make sure that it looked like an aspirational lifestyle brand, but actually delivered on the science and on the on the dentistry at the same time.
Very cool. Pete will talk to you about becoming the U.S. distributor for it after we hang up.
Sounds good to
I
me.
already own Parla.us, so
yeah, he just bought Parla toothpaste. Yeah, and I actually just bought Parla toothpaste tablets UK.com. But
So
we'll
we're
talk. We'll
good.
talk later.
So it'll be a hard negotiation, Simon.
Yeah.
Trust me.
I've been hustled here live.
Yeah. Oh my God. You want to talk about being hustled live, Simon? I don't know if you ever heard the story, but we're on stage at our first summit in Atlanta about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago this October. And Peter was featured in a best-selling book with one of our business partners. The book was called The Millennial Whisperer by Chris Tuff. It's a New York Times best-selling book. And I had this idea in my practice about giving out these reward dollars. I call them Spodak Dental Group bucks. And on stage, he's like, Craig, I never really told you the story. And we got like 150 people in the audience. And he goes live and says, you know how you have those SDG bucks? I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, I changed it to Atlanta Dental Spa bucks, and I got featured in a New York Times best-selling book and took your idea. And they're interviewing me about this. And the people from the New York Times say it was the best part of the book, and they think I'm a genius. I'm like, you motherfucker. Like, live. We're live.
I had to wait till we were live to tell him. I was like, I got a confession, because he couldn't do anything. You know,
I was like laughing like it doesn't bother me.
Genius.
It's like falling, like dropping your bicycle in front of a cafe and like falling and you know and hurting yourself. I literally
walk it off.
I had to walk it off. But I couldn't.
Just rub some dirt on it, Craig.
Yeah, it was so bad, man. So about the Parla Tooth Tablets.us, it's probably real with Pete.
Hey, I'm a businessman first.
Oh shit! Oh God. So anyway, so that's really cool. And let's you know what I really love about you know it's funny you have these online relationships and Peter, not Grindr or Tinder that you're thinking, but more like the ones that we develop when we have someone we have a lot of respect for, like the way I feel about you, Simon. And also like Miguel Stanley, like I was following Miguel Stanley for quite a while, and then we get to meet in person. And then it's a whole different level. And with technology like we have today, this is like our first meeting, but I get a really good sense of who you are. And you're an empath like I am. And Pete, you probably want to just tune out for the next 2 minutes here, because Pete always gets what he calls sweaty back when he hears these conversations.
No, that's sweaty back. It's just, this is when Craig gets touchy-feely. Go for it, buddy.
All right, I'm going touchy-feely. So if you're not a touchy-feely person, put this on pause for a second and pick up.
Fast forward.
We'll be done in 2 minutes, literally 2 minutes.
Fast forward.
But anyway, so we've got like, you know, Miguel Stanley and when I first met Miguel, we instantly really bonded, and it's always when I bond with people, at least personally, it's always over our common frailties of, you know, because you expect a guy like Miguel Stanley who's been on the doctors in Portugal and the US, and he's got everything tight, you know, he's doing everything great. And you're like, geez, if I just had what he had, life would be amazing. And then you get to know the person, you're like, hey, I struggle too. And there's a real sense of liberty and freedom in realizing that your struggle, whatever you have, is as common as human beings. We're human beings, and we're having emotional experiences, and it's tough. And I can gather that from you. And your message is so uplifting, and how you use physical fitness. And I got to admit, sometimes I'll see you working out, I'm like, God damn it, I got to go work out. So it's working. I mean, you know, we have friendships. Peter and I have a very good friendship, and lately we've been texting each other back and forth, like, get your workout in, screenshot what you're doing. Like, you know, so I'm screenshotting my Peloton output and so on and so forth. So tell me how that happened for you. Is that like how you grew up? Or, I mean, the sensitivity, how did that come into play? Cause it's like, really, I look at the space, it's like Miguel Stanley, it's you, and it's also Kyle Stanley, Miguel's distant white cousin, for those of you who don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying. And I think, when you and Miguel, when you guys and Miguel were on your podcast previously, I think you described it as being a pleaser, and I think that's definitely what I am, 100%. And as you say, when you see people online who you sort of relate with, and then you meet them in person, I felt exactly the same way about Miguel. I felt exactly the same way about Kyle, because I've met both of them in person, and I'm sure I'll feel the same way when we all get to finally meet up physically. But it's I think that's the most important thing with my relationship with those guys, is that they appear to be extremely successful, good looking, beautiful wives, beautiful kids, but actually they've got this vulnerability. And I think anyone who is willing to express their vulnerability, some sort of alpha macho individuals may view that as a weakness, but I think to be able to
like
expose
you're talking
your
about
own...
Pete, right? Sorry, when you said that, when you used the finger
Sorry,
quotes, you meant Pete, right?
Settle down, Spodak.
Vengeance is mine for the millennial whisperer. I've been avenged. Okay, sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry. No. When you have people like Pete, I understand. Go on where you're going.
But I think that people who are willing to expose their vulnerability, that they're the strongest individuals, because once you've shown your weakest card, then nobody can get you on anything. That's it. You're transparent, and that's what I love about social media, is the opportunity to be transparent emotively, because that's just who I am as a person. I cry at movies. I'm a very emotional guy. I tell my wife I love her all the time, and I'll probably cry on this podcast if you push me hard enough. But it's that's just who I am, and I think that's the best way I can explain it, I guess.
Yeah, it's cool. I cry from stage a lot too. I don't, and I've learned that from mentors. I'm very fortunate to have, Tony Robbins in my life, and he's been a mentor of mine, and I spent a lot of personal time with him as I care for him as a patient. And oftentimes he comes in late, and I've had to drive him home. Not had to, but I've had the honor to drive him to his house, and we've had a lot of chats in the car on the way home. And he's an empath too, and he has he's kind of one of the people that shaped this ability to be strong and be emotional at the same time. And when you said that, when you're transparent, you show your weakest card. It's kind of like The Art of War, by Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu is like, the Art of War says, like, when you're attacking an enemy, when you're near, you appear far. When you're far, or you appear near. When you're strong, you should appear weak. And when you're weak, so when you're weak, you actually have to appear strong, because you have to bolster yourself. But when you're actually coming from an internal place of strength, you can show your weakness, because that there's strength tapped in there. And I don't know if it's Tony's quote or not, but Tony would oftentimes say, like, water leaving your eyes is the only place on your body where water coming out of is appropriate in public. So he just has this way of, if you've been to one of his live events, and I know we talked about you wanting to go, it's going to be awesome for you. I can't wait for you to do it. If there's anything I can do to encourage you to do it, I'm going to do that. But he'll oftentimes cry, and he cries a lot in his events. But when Tony cries, it's interesting, because he kind of stands up even straighter, and his chest goes out. Like, when we tend, as men, we've always been taught, socialized at least, to think it's not appropriate to cry. So when we cry, we shrink. And there's something really powerful about, being okay in a vulnerable spot, and a position like you have. And I think that we have, by having this conversation, by letting people know that just because you have a podcast, you wrote a book, or you're on a board of a reputable organization, we're still human beings. We're having this human experience, and we're in, like, human school. We have an evolutionary primitive brain that's, like, akin to an ape, so when the shit hits the fan, like the coronavirus scare, fear can take us over, and we can go dark, and then we can have a bad day and get upset and have a fight with a loved one. And then every day is a new beginning. It's literally a new lifetime. So you put your head on the pillow. You're not proud of the day you had. Either you behaved in a way that you're not proud of, you got emotional and you're sensitive about it, or you're scared. Tomorrow, every day is a reset. Sleep is its own little way of cleansing what happened, and there's another chance. And all we can do as human beings is say, tomorrow can be better. And I think if you have a lifetime of better tomorrows, you have an epic life.
I've been meditating quite a lot, even more so recently, because with all the coronavirus, I've had more time, which makes a difference. But I was meditating the other day using Headspace, and one of the things they said was, you have to be aware that every time you do something, it's the first time you're doing it. So you might think that you are going back into the same state of anxiety, and here we go again, going back into that. But it's different every single time. You're in a different location, you're in a different state of mind. And I think if you look at everything as the first time that you're doing it, then it gives you an opportunity to not be so worried about it, because you know that, as you say, the next day things are going to be different again, and you're going to feel differently about something. So I found that quite powerful.
Yeah, Pete's encouraging me too, because the other day every time Pete and I, right before we go on stage, we pray. It's kind of a ritual that we've done. Just something simple, like, asking a higher power to give us the influence and capability to inspire the people that have paid money and taken time away from their families. I mean, people have traveled really far and spent a lot of money to hear what we have to say, and we want to make sure we deliver for them. And that's our whole mission. And Pete was like, "So how's your praying going?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, you pray when we go on stage. Are you praying a lot?" I was like, "No, dude, the last time I prayed was when we got on stage." And he's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And so, like, he's, because meditation, prayer, whatever you want to call it, it's calm space where you're asking for help. And I think that's really important to have that ritual of some sort.
It's massive. I mean, meditation for me has been one of the strongest tools in my armamentarium. I view exercise as part of that as well, because I think any opportunity when you focus solely on one thing, whether it be physical exertion or actually just your breath or whatever it is, especially for individuals like us who clearly we're ambitious, clearly we're sort of type A personalities who are driven by what's going on in the future, what's the next opportunity we have to be successful. Certainly that's always been my mind space. I must have sort of 20 ideas a day about what my next thing I'm going to do is. And if I don't make that space mentally, then it's very easy to either worry about the future or worry about the past, or just get into that negative mind space.
I think that being a type A, by the way, has a lot to do with it, because if you have 20 ideas and 15 of them need time and they could actually be good, you're only going to execute a handful of those. So you could very easily wind up in a conversation in your own head of like, "Oh, I'm not getting shit done." And like, "What's going on?" Like, everybody's moving ahead, and what am I doing? I'm not advancing these things, and I just talk a lot of shit. I'm just not getting shit done. I mean, the dialogue that we have with ourselves is really, really powerful as well. And
so I have this on my, as you can't see it, and you probably can't see it because it's backwards, but this is
no, it's correct. It's right.
Good.
Okay. So going into, Simon, I've suffered with anxiety at many points in my life, and my hack hasn't, meditation is hard, honestly. And sometimes that creates even more anxiety, because I'm like, am I doing this right? What's going on?
Yeah.
Like, why am I thinking? And it almost creates this more like, God, I'm failing at this too kind of thing.
But I can't even fucking meditate. I'm so fucking up.
Damn brain. Right. And
I've been there for sure.
What's helped me is the only thing is kind of like, look, just play. I have to actually talk to myself, and your words create your reality. And I'm like, this is okay. Or right, if I get anxiety about something, especially in this day and time with like the COVID situation, right? I've been panicking, and then all of a sudden I was like, wait a second, I'm just going to automatically put things into two buckets: shit I can fix and shit I cannot control. Right. And I'm going to work hard on the things I can control, and I'm going to pray hard about the shit I can't. And that's it. And that was literally, and so I've gotten into this narrative about, because the message that goes on in your head's like, I'm a failure, and oh my gosh, I'm scared, and doom and gloom, and listening to the news. Like, if those become the tape messages that play in your brain, if that's the diet of consumption of food that your brain is eating, you're doomed. You're doomed. And so I have to literally remind myself that like the words I play on my tape recorder in my brain create the reality and my optics going forward.
Yeah, there's a saying, you have to stand guard at the gateway to your head. You have to stand guard at it. My dad was telling me, he's like, I'm really scared about this stuff. My dad's 78 years old. He's locked up in his house. I'm like, Dad, how much news are you watching? He's like, constant. And it's what we're feeding ourselves. But I find a really, when you say talking to yourself, there's this really cool exercise. It's like and what else? So let's just say you take your fear of like, this is going to happen. Like, maybe let's go pre-corona. Like you're worried about your business succeeding or some sort, or you're worried about failure. So you go through this thing like, okay, so what if I don't get enough new patients? Okay, well then this, and then what if that? And then this, and then what if that happens? And then it was this. And then ultimately you get to a place after you've gone through like the 20 steps, and then what next? And you're like, okay, then I'm actually okay. You can reduce all of your fears. The problem is we kind of take our concerns and we just loop them. Like you said, Pete, the recording, it's just being played over and over. Yeah. That's what anxiety is. It's like, is this going to happen? I don't know. What if it happens? I don't know. What would I do? Is this going to happen? What would I do? It's like, it's literally craziness. It's a crazy loop of
you never finish the conversation, do you? I think that, I don't know if you guys have read The Power of Now by Eckhart
Tolle.
Tolle.
Love it.
But that's like, I always try to think back to that book whenever I
pain
worry
body.
about stuff.
The pain body,
Yeah.
right? Is that what he talks about? Like that there's a human need to suffer and awaken the pain
Well,
body?
yeah, that, but also just the fact that you say you're in control of the gateway to your own mind. You are having these negative discussions with yourself. It's the ego, and you're discussing things in the future, or you're discussing things in the past with your own ego. And actually, if you just became present and you thought, what is attacking me right now? Like, for example, right now I'm sitting in my house. I'm safe. I could be worrying about COVID, but it's actually not affecting me right now. I'm literally in a safe space. And in 99.9% of your life, that's where you are. Like, you're in a safe environment, but you're worrying about the future or the past that, as you say, are largely out of your control anyway.
Yeah, it's cool. I love that book because I listened to him on Audible and his voice is so monotone.
Yeah,
I'll pass out in 6 seconds. Like, and the problem is the pain body, but you know, it's just, I don't do a very good Eckhart Tolle, but yeah.
No, that's good. I like that.
It's a powerful book. I think the next one was A New Earth, where he talks about the pain body. But it's true. It's like you think about, like, all thought is just subvocal speech. You're actually talking to yourself. What do I have to do after this podcast? Oh, I should really go, talk to the kids. Like, you're having a conversation. So you really have to have, to Peter's point, you have to have good conversations with yourself. And
you talk to yourself way more than you talk to anyone else.
Well, of course. Yeah. Well, all thinking.
Like there's dialogue going on from morning to night in your head. And so, like I said, it shapes you. And whenever I get down and down, I can go down a dark place of, God, I failed at this too. And gosh, this is horrible. And my relationship's horrible. Right. And all of a sudden you get more of what you get kind of thing. What am I trying to say?
Pete,
right. It kind of feeds on each other. It's piling on, and then you can't get out of that cycle because it's spiraling down.
Do you think you said you've been in dark places before? Do you think that you've kind of cracked anxiety in your own head, or like, do you feel much stronger now to be able to deal with negative life events?
Totally. I do. I had a really dark place that I don't, and I don't speak about it publicly that much, but 2015 was, to the point where it was as dark as it was going to get for me. And honestly, Simon, looking back, so many silver linings came from that event that now, given that I'm, 43 years old now, I've had enough life experience to know that, like, when there's dark, there will be massive light. And I think that's what gets me through it. Literally, I know that there's a purpose for everything. And I truly believe that whatever darkness is happening, even right now, there is a purpose for this virus.
Oh, yeah.
And there will be a blessing that comes from it. That I am certain. So as dark as it is, and I've had a couple, like I said, life events where it was really dark, and I would literally tell myself, Simon, one day at a time, I was like, I'm just going to finish today, and then I'll make a decision at the end of the day. I'm going to finish tomorrow, and then I would wake up the next morning and be like, I'm going to finish today, and then I'll make a decision at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And by the way, like that, the feeling that you had, Pete, the crushing portion of what upsets most of us is that we feel alone in our suffering. So it's like this, especially with social media, and why I appreciate what Simon does as a beacon of hope, because when you look at people and they've got it all, just like you said, and they're still transparent, they're still suffering. It gives people unconscious permission to be at peace with their own human emotions. But right now it's a magical time. And I use the word magic because I'm really thinking there's no better term, because the whole world is on pause. Every one of us, you're 3,000 miles away from us, Simon, and your fears are exactly the same fears that we have right now. And it doesn't matter what portion of the planet you're on, we all are at the exact same point, this inflection point in our lives of, like, everything's been taken away, momentarily, of course. There's no pressure to get ahead because we're all frozen at the start line, at the starting point. And there's no end in sight, really. And I know one thing for sure: our children, our pets, if you have some, this is the most special time in their lives, and they'll always remember this.
Massive. I mean, so two points on that. Number one, I couldn't agree more. Like, the unity across the whole world right now, it's the most that it could ever have been. I mean, there's never been a time in our lifetimes where we've all experienced exactly the same thing at exactly the same time.
The world is focused on one problem right now. That's it. Right?
It's either a pandemic or an alien invasion. Those are the only two things that can probably do it. Because to the virus, we all look the same. We're so concerned about what race or what gender or sexual preference. We made all these subgroups over the last couple of years. The virus doesn't give a shit, and aliens wouldn't give a shit. They're like, I don't even notice if you're black or white. You don't look like we do, and they'd blow us away.
You're just food.
Yeah, you're just food to us.
don't know if you saw the 15 points that they were attributed to Bill Gates. I don't know if he actually said them, but they were really interesting positives that he took from the whole COVID situation, which I thought were really nice. So check those out. But to your point about the kids, like I have a 2-year-old girl, and over since she's been born, I've been sort of reaching the peak, not the peak of my career, but my career's been going very, very well. I've been super busy with the practice. I've been lecturing loads internationally. I've been launching Parlor. So I've been so busy. And I've had to sort of literally physically book time out in my diary to be at home with my family. So naturally, my little girl, when I get back home from work, she's like, I want mummy. I don't want you. And that's been really hard for me. But since I've been at home, she's now just flipped completely, and she's a complete daddy's girl. Yeah. And I personally, if I block out all of the sadness, which obviously there is a lot of it around right now, but for me personally, within my own environment of my home, it's been wonderful. I've absolutely loved the time with her.
You know, and I wonder if we look back on this time. I think the greatest travesty for any of us would be to go back, because let's just say, you know, life is going to go back to normal. We know this. And imagine looking back at this time and saying, I was forced to be at home. And instead of being with my family that needed me, I was just consuming news and data and trying to navigate. And I was paralyzed by fear. That would be the greatest travesty, because when life goes back to normal, excuse me, we'll be super busy, and we'll say, like, what did I do with those weeks? What did I actually accomplish? Did I get in better shape? Did I get in worse shape? Did I create more love in my family? Did my wife and my husband feel that I was more connected or less connected? Because that's really what's going to happen. We're going to look back at this time, and I want people to realize that this is a rare blessing where we all have this time to invest in the relationships, things that we always said we never had time to do. This is the time to prove that concept. But
again, that's the narrative, Craig, that I was talking about earlier, right? So you have to say, like, holy shit, we're forced. You know, you can doom and gloom and say, just hunker down and watch news until this passes. Or like, okay, we flip the narrative on what a blessing, X, Y, and Z, like Simon's talked about and you talked about, right? Yeah. So it's just the words in our head, right? And that frames your narrative. Your perception is your reality.
And one interesting thing too is that if we look back on this time, obviously there might be, 60, 100,000 deaths. Who knows what the world's going to face? We don't really know. But if you actually take all the numbers, because people aren't driving, in the US alone, 3,900 people die in vehicular accidents every single day. You drive down the street, there's a faded yellow line, and you're bombing down at 60 miles an hour. And you're just blindly trusting, you're checking your phone, you're looking at different things, and you're just blindly trusting that the person on the other side of the street is not going to be distracted or drunk or tired and slam and kill you. So we're not driving right now. So probably the vehicular accidents are going to go down by half. So that's possibly a million, there's 1.25 million people just in the US that die. So let's just say that at the end of this, 500,000 less people die of vehicular accidents and 300,000 die of coronavirus. I don't know. It might be a net positive for life on the planet. We don't even know.
I never thought of it that way.
You know what I'm saying? And there's so many other things to think about it. I think it's next flu season, or next, let's say Corona goes away and never comes back like it did the first time with SARS in 2002. What's going to happen next year with the flu? Because 80,000 people died of the flu, and I'm not trying to minimize coronavirus in any fashion, but imagine if every time someone died of the flu, you knew about it, and there was graphs and charts, and you knew about all of it. And every time someone died in a car accident, you knew about it. And it's just, we're not meant to know all this stuff. We're not meant to be.
I said that to my wife yesterday, because she was saying, "Oh, look at all these new deaths that have come through. Look at this 13-year-old kid who's died. Look at these 2 nurses who have died." And I said to her, Megs, but how often are you checking the worldwide death rate every day? Like that's literally, you're looking at that checker every single day of how many people have died, like it's going to make a difference to your life. And that you wouldn't do that in normality.
Look at famine. I show my kids, I'm kind of dark with this, but my kids, every time they're picky about food and stuff like that, I've had dinner conversations. I pull up a clock. I have an app, not an app, but it's a website that shows how many people are dying of famine. And it's been going on for millennia. And, before the coronavirus, every second there's a child.
Torturing your kids at dinner time, Craig. Good
well,
job.
no, I'm just showing, like, hey, listen,
I like it. It's parenting advice for me.
Well, no, I mean, I always, my kids, ever since they could walk, they've handed out food at Thanksgiving, and you need context is what I'm trying to say. And the context we have right now is one way, looking at a coronavirus calculator and seeing graphs of stuff like that. But there's been travesties of humanity going on for forever. And even still with the coronavirus and what's raging right now, we're still at the best time to be a human being with the longest lifespan and all this other stuff, and access to care and access to food. And less people are dying of starvation now than ever before. And we're feeling like we're suffering. And I think the message that we're trying to communicate here is you are at home, and that's a beautiful thing. And this is the time to invest in the relationships that you won't have time to do, because when things clear up, it's going to be back to the hustle.
Yeah,
Simon,
sure.
What is your plan once you guys get the green light in for your practice?
Before I ask that question, just a point on what you were saying there, Craig. I read a quote literally this morning, I think on Instagram, that said, I was crying about not having shoes until I saw the man who had no feet. Yeah. And I think that's a perfect analogy for exactly what you're just saying. But my plan in what way? In how I think we're going to go back to work? Or?
I'm going to pivot this back to your practice, and because obviously you're prolific and you're an influencer, and I want to hear your plan that you've obviously spent some time. Let's say that the UK says, okay, dentistry is back in open season again. What is your plan? How are you gonna turn the lights back on, metaphorically speaking? So
I've been doing a lot of thinking about that, naturally, and I'm viewing this horrible situation in the most positive light that I can do, which is that it's going to be a massive opportunity for business.
Yep.
I think I'm going to force myself to innovate harder than ever before, and use this break point as a reset button for myself, because naturally we all fall into a routine. For example, I probably see, let's say, 3 new patients a day that I'm in the clinic who come and see me because of Instagram. And so I just rely on Instagram wholly. And because it's been so good to me, I haven't had to think about doing anything else. Yeah.
Holy shit. Okay.
A lot of guys are doing that. It's incredible.
And gals. Correct.
So
yeah, when I say guys, I meant you guys.
People.
That's people. Hey, you guys.
But yeah, so that's kind of my view on it, is that I'm thinking, right, okay, this may not work anymore. Like, you may be sitting on your ass doing nothing, and you may not have the patients coming through anymore, because people might not want cosmetic dentistry right now. They're probably thinking, I don't have a job, or I've lost loads of money because of the coronavirus pandemic.
Or it could be YOLO.
It could be, and there's a lot of people at home right now who are probably snacking hard and not looking after their teeth. So,
or just saying like, hell yeah, I get one life and this could have been taken. I'm going to go out with a freaking beautiful smile at least. I don't care how much money I have left, right? Life is fragile. Like, let's live pretty or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of pent up. There's going to be a lot of pent up demand. I mean, I've told Peter too, like, if you go to your favorite restaurant once a week, when this thing finally lifts, it's not like you're going to go 15 times in a row to make up for lost demand. All these people, broken teeth, all this stuff. I think we're looking at like expanded hours and trying to handle as much as possible in that way.
I hope so. But what's been from a business point of view, what's been very useful for me is, obviously I took over my parents' practice 2 years ago. They've been running things in their way for a long time, very successfully. But obviously I had my own ideas that I wanted to implement. And I've kind of been a bit lazy. I say lazy in my terms, but I've been a little bit lazy with some of the things that I wanted to action that I haven't got around to because I've been too busy. And the knowledge I have of my own practice finances right now is better than I have ever known before. Like all of my expenses, I can tell you to the nearest pound what I've been spending. I've actually just decided to switch my practice management software, because the one that I was using was relatively archaic and I was paying a lot of money for it.
What are you going to?
I'm going to Software of Excellence, because they've got a really nice patient portal. Software of Excellence. It's a Henry Schein.
Is it
cloud-based management software? Is it what, sorry?
Is it like a cloud-based Dentrix?
It's not cloud-based, because there's no decent cloud-based ones in the UK at the moment, but they are moving towards that. But I think
that sounds like British Dentrix. I mean, Dentrix doesn't sound good for the British market. They have to Excellence.
Excellent
Self-worth
sounds
excellence.
amazing.
So much better.
With an English accent, it sounds appropriate.
It does. It's very regal. I could imagine like a family crest with swords and shields. Do they knight you when they give it to you?
Yeah, is it a big ceremony when you sign up?
There is a lot of red velvet.
Yeah, that's
Simon. What's you bring up something good. Actually, I've been listening to you talk, and like, so you're kind of treating it. There's so many of us in dentistry complain, whether it's the team member that we hate, or I don't have the time for systems and operations, or I hate the way this is going in my practice, and all these belly aching things that we want to fix. Somewhat, we have a clean canvas now, right? We're all going to be, yes, kind of starting up again, turning the lights on. But now would be the time, all those things that you hated in your practice, or maybe didn't have the financial acumen, like you saying, you know your numbers now better than ever, right? If you know your weaknesses, now's the time to work on it. If you know you hate something, now's the time to work on it. If you know you're weak in the systems and your team has gone rogue, like maybe now's the time to let go of those ones that you knew that aren't a good fit for your culture. Now's the time to kind of work on this. So my point is that like we are going to have we should be intolerant about belly aching post corona, post COVID, because you had the fucking time to fix it.
Yeah. No excuses anymore.
Yeah.
And I think I was listening to a webinar with Christian Coachman yesterday, and he had a life coach on. It was really interesting what he said. He said, when you look back at this time in 2 years' time, are you going to be proud of what you achieved and how you behaved,
right.
or are you going to feel negative about it? And I think especially with regards to how you look after your staff, for the staff who you do really value and who have always been there for you, if you've acted in a way that is scared and defensive and you haven't looked after them, then you won't have that strong team to go back to.
Well, look, it's easy. You guys talk, Craig, you talk about me being an alpha or whatever, but like, I do resonate with the William Wallaces of the world, right? And so I think it's very easy for us to be, as leaders in practices, I think it's very easy when we're in peace times to be good CEOs. Like anyone can be a good peacetime CEO, or when the market is bullish and things are going crazy, it's easy to be a CEO. But, are you a good wartime CEO? Did you treat your team? Did you treat your soldiers, if you will, correctly in that time period, right? And did you show fear when they were looking to be led out of that dark place? And and I'm not saying that I've done it perfectly. Like I'll probably have some regrets of the way I handled things, but I did it with not just by flippantly thinking like, oh, I'll just do this. There was heavy deliberation about what I wanted to do, and But I don't know. I just think there's a cool distinction between wartime and peacetime CEOs, and like, which one are you? And do you have the chops? Do you have the chops to kind of like be like, everyone follow me? And Craig, you talked about a battle, right? Everyone follow me. I've got this. And I think that's what people want when things are dark.
Yeah. I had a really cool quote. Sorry if I'm laying out loads of cheesy quotes here, but that character, like a photograph, is revealed in the darkness. And that obviously doesn't really make sense anymore because everything's digital. But for those people old enough to have developed a film photograph, I thought that was very, very true because, as you say, it's so easy to be, it's like it's easy to have faith or to believe in fate when everything is going according to plan. It's like, oh, everything's meant to be because I'm smashing it. It's a lot harder to say that when things aren't going your way and to still have that strength of mind and that same sort of mindset.
Yeah, well, that's when you learn about yourself. You learn about yourself and your failures. You learn about yourself through your darkness. And I look at human emotion like a conduit, like it's a pipe. The capacity to feel is like the diameter of a pipe. So when bad things happen and you suffer, even though you're feeling negative emotion, the pipe is expanding. But what's it really doing is when the suffering ends, because it always does, and the night ends and the sun comes out again, you have an increased capacity to feel. So and I'm not making a judgment on antidepressants and those types of, therapies for people that are depressed. But what antidepressants tend to do from a biological standpoint, a biochemical standpoint, is shrink the pipe. So yes, it mutes the depression, but it also mutes the highs. So it makes you just kind of muted to all of life. So I think you're just meant to feel it all and know that when you're suffering, you're just expanding your capacity to feel. So
I think. So go ahead.
No, that's it. That's what I was saying. Just to embrace the process.
And I think for me, like obviously I'm 33. I haven't.
It could be your dad, by the way.
I've only owned my practice for 2 years. I listened to a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk, And he's been saying for years, hands up if you're younger than 35, you haven't been punched in the mouth yet. And because I was still an undergraduate in 2008. I wasn't there for the .com bubble. And I feel like this is me being punched in the mouth. And I think the fact that I'm aware of that right now, it almost gives me strength, because I'm like, right, I'm not going to crumble. This is my opportunity to actually put my money where my mouth is and show what I'm all about. So I guess that's probably why I'm feeling pragmatically optimistic about the situation, is because I'm like, I have positivity in my own strength, and I'm just going to keep on grinding it out. Yeah. I'm in the ring now.
Yeah. But it's also a time where many of your colleagues and many of our people that we associate within our areas are going to get the punch in the mouth as the knockout punch for them. So in 2008, my practice expanded by 78%, because when there's blood in the streets, I was reaching out to all the people around me like, hey, do you want to merge? You want to do this or that? And this is a great time, because a lot of people, human beings, when things go well, they think it's going to go well forever. And when they're bad, they think it's going to go bad forever. And in the grand scheme, I have a feeling this might be, God willing, a shorter dip than than the economic recession.
I agree.
So I think it's important that you reach out to, this is a time to expand and not just contract. Take a pause, get your house in order. But if there's opportunities and you have friends in the area that are feeling ultra dark, you can bring them into the fold and potentially create a group practice through this time, which would be neat as well.
I'll definitely have to pick your brain on that at another time, Craig, because that's it's always been, and it's interesting actually. Ever since university, I've always dreamt of having like a micro corporate type thing, because I love branding. I love that sort of element of business, and I kind of fluctuate with it day to day whether or not I still think that's a good idea.
So do I, and I've already done it. So
so you've got your big main complex, right? And then have you got other small practices as well?
No, I just have one 13,000 square foot. Yeah, one beast. Yeah. But it's for me, I love people. I'm an extrovert. I love like the energy of it. I used to get excited when I practiced in a small environment. When a specialist would come in, I get excited. It was more energy. Like how many people can I see today? How many people can I be around? And I just really like that. I love my team. My team inspires me. They hold me accountable, and it's just really fun for me. I miss working a lot, actually. I miss just being in the mix with my people. But as far as like the reaching out to the merger thing, it doesn't have to be so overt as, hey, do you want to merge? This is a time when you can send a friendly email to your colleagues in the area saying, hey, this is a time we're all going back to our reset, and dentistry has to stick together through this time. We're going to be here to support each other. A conciliatory message. And I'm here for you if you need anything. And someone may reach out like, hey man, I'm really suffering here. And, I've always wanted to pull the trigger and not do this. And now this cemented that decision. And then those are opportunities to combine. I'll be happy to talk to you about all that stuff. I've done it before. I've written those letters, and they've created really good relationships, even though they didn't all work as I didn't get a merger out of it. I've created really good friendships with some of my colleagues in the area just by having them, because they wanted to get to know me, and we went fishing and we hung out. We spent a lot of quality time together, and then nothing came of it. But now I have a really good friend. So I think dentistry needs that on a local level as well.
Oh, massively. And I was chatting with one of my friends about that last night on a Instagram live. I think locally, dentists, I don't know if this is the same in the States, but in the UK, a lot of dentists look at their local competition and they think of it as just that. It's competition. Or what marketing are they doing? I'm going to copy that. I'm going to undercut them on that price. And that's so negative for the profession. Like our patients are unlimited. Every single person on this planet is a potential patient for us. And if we practice that abundance mentality and we have the support of our local dentists, we're in so much of a better position, because guess what? If that patient hates you, they're going to go to the guy just down the road. And if he hates you as well, then he could quite easily be slagging off your dentistry, as opposed to being very professional about it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. And we tend to be so judgmental. I think it's a product of our schooling. Our schooling really, in medical school, it's always, a bunch of medical doctors, and they're rounding together, they're co-diagnosing. And in medicine, it's like doctor and patient versus disease. And in dentistry, we have this idea like, hey, patient, you've got TMJ. I am going to take your TMJ away. Like medical professionals don't say, I will take care of your cancer. They say, you know what, you've got cancer and this is going to be a really uphill battle and we're going to try our best. But, you know, I don't know what the future holds for you. But in dentistry, it's like, I will fix everything. I will make it perfect. And it's this heroic bullshit that sets us up for failure, because TMJ is multifactorial, and you can never tell someone I can take care of it. If they have terrible teeth and terrible disease and you put a bunch of veneers and crowns on and they don't change their behavior, that beautiful work that you did will be trashed in 2-3 years. But yet we tell people, oh, this should last 12 years. This should last 15 years. No, they got in this position because they don't give a shit about their teeth. And if you don't change the behavior and you come in and do beautiful work, I don't care how beautiful your work is, they're going to trash it. And we've got to shift that idea. That's part of that's maybe part 2 of our podcast, why we set ourselves up for failure in that way. Because patients view it like carpentry, not like a medical procedure. Like, if you made the bed properly, it should last for 12 years.
And then they go to your local competition and the local competition says, oh yeah, don't worry, this is bad work. I can do way better. Don't worry, we're just going to change everything. And I'll do a much better job. And then it's just,
and then 5 years later, they meet the third person. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of the, for dentists and mental health, that's one of the big things that we're fighting against, is firstly against the fact that everything fails and that we have to get used to that. And everything has a percentage chance of immediate failure. And also that as a profession, we need to be there needs to be more camaraderie within the profession. I don't know if you guys read Black Box Thinking. Have you read that book by Matthew Syed?
No.
Yeah, I think he might be an English guy, but it's a really interesting book about failure and about what we can learn from the airplane industry, and how anytime there's anything goes wrong, whenever there's a plane crash or anything goes wrong, that failure, which is not attributed to any individual, is spread amongst every single pilot across the world. And so every time something goes wrong, they learn from it. Whereas in dentistry and in medicine, whenever anything goes wrong, it's almost inbuilt in us to sort of try and hide the failure.
Yeah, of course.
Because we're worried that it's going to be blamed on us. And that I think if every dentist and medic in the world had the opportunity to read that book, I think there would be a lot less sort of castigation of physicians about things that go wrong that is inevitable in essence.
Well, I think, this is the macro affecting the micro. So the fact that you're here and we're talking openly about it, and that there's the barrier of social media so that people are not feeling threatened, they can be open. At least we have the channels to start that dialogue. But it sounds as though we need to do a part 2. Pete, are you down to do a part 2 with Dr. Simon Chard at a certain point? Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. But I want to be respectful of your time, and I appreciate that you made the time to talk to us. I've been a big fan of what you've been doing, and I appreciate what you're doing, and your voice and your message is inspiring, not only for the younger generation looking up to you, but for guys like me. And me. And Peter.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
it. You have effect on the empath and the alpha male, the William Wallaces and the Pee Wee Hermans like me. And by the way, the William Wallace might have been moderately offensive to Simon because he fought the English. Remember?
Yeah.
I do a great William Wallace. I'll do one time when we're together.
Sounds good.
That's awesome. Yeah, Simon, thank you so much for spending time with us, pal.
Thanks, guys. Really enjoyed it.
Okay.
Likewise. Take care, everybody.
All the best.